Today, UFC has a new catchphrase, and it goes something like this: Shama. As we saw Alex Pereira go out there and defeat Yuri Prohashka in the main event of UFC 303. Also, what about Diego Lopes, who went through multiple weight classes and multiple opponents before stepping in the octagon with Dan Ige? Also, Anthony Smith took another L. And I can't say that I feel bad about that or I feel sorry about that. Frankly, I wish he took 10 more L's, because maybe he would finally see that it's probably time to hang it up. Nevertheless, we will get into that as well as a retirement today on Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt. We here to break down UFC 303 that went down over the weekend in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. So, let's start out with the main event where we had Alex Pereira, Poetan Alex Pereira, go out there and defeat Yuri Prohashka in the second round by KO. Here's what I'd like to say about Alex Pereira and about what he's currently doing in the UFC. Alex Pereira is going out there and he's showing that despite all of your years of training, all of your years of practicing grappling and wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and being able to hold someone up against the cage, hold someone on the ground, being able to keep transitioning and moving behind them and eventually sink into submission or a rear naked choke. All of that don't mean anything against somebody that's going to go in there and alpha you right to the ground via a large strike, whether it's via the fists or via the feet. Bro, Alex Pereira is breaking the MMA code. He's going out there with no prior background in grappling, wrestling, scrambling, anything of that nature, right? None at all. Simply going in there with a kickboxing, striking background, but goes in there stoic. He goes in there powerful. He goes in there, frankly, terrifying, never smiling, never breaking the gimmick. And he goes out there with such an alpha presence, there's nothing these guys can do to him. He goes out there with people that can grapple. He goes out there with people that can wrestle. And they can't do anything to him. They can't do anything to him. And some people take him down to the ground. Yanni Blacko, Jan Blachowicz took him down to the ground. There's been times he's lost rounds where he's been held down on the ground. Even Izzy took him down. But at the end of the day, the way that he carries himself into these fights is the main reason he continues to go out there and win fight after fight after fight. Because he's just not concerned with it. He's only concerned with his game plan. Shout out to Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira always prepares Alex to go out there and do his thing, man. And he's just breaking the mold. You know what I'm saying? He's cracked the code of MMA. Because we've seen a lot of kickboxers switch over from kickboxing in the past and go into the UFC, and it just hasn't translated the way that it does with Alex Pereira. The deadliest left hook in the game. You know what I'm saying? That deadly check hook. That deadly straight left hook. I mean, bro, the way that he was schooling Yuri. I'm watching this fight, and Alex Pereira constantly is circling toward his left, right? He's in this stance. He's kind of in a bladed stance like this, and he's constantly circling to his left. And the way that he lures his opponent in, it's like his left hand is like a fishing lure, right? And he casts it out there, and he continues to circle to his left, and it draws his opponent in. They know what he's working with, being the left hook. They know what he's going to do, but he continues to draw them in like he's threw out a fishing lure, and he's reeling them in. And as they get closer and closer, it's just bing. You know what I'm saying? Like he sticks them with that left hook every time, and they can't handle it. They can't take it. And then you look at this fight, and he's constantly circling to his left with this bladed stance, and he's throwing this left hand out there. Sometimes it's a jab. Sometimes it's a check hook. Sometimes it's a power left hook. But these guys, they can't help but circle into that range. And then maybe when Yuri, after he felt the power, he gets knocked down the last second of the first round. Yuri's probably thinking, God, I got to be on the lookout. I got to be on the watch. I got to be on the lookout for that left hand. To be honest with you, I think Yuri's so insane. I don't know what he thinks in his mind, to be real with you. You know what I'm saying? As Alex Pereira was walking out, Yuri, in the words of Daniel Cormier, is in the middle of the cage channeling the spirits and doing his best Ultimate Warrior impression in the middle of the cage, holding up his arms and trying to zap away, for lack of a better term, the energy of Alex Pereira. You know what I'm saying? That's what this guy's working with. This guy spent the entire fight week talking about voodoo and talking about evil spirits and what Alex Pereira is channeling in these fights, and even asked him in a very polite way, please don't channel the spirits in our fight. Let's just have an even, equal fight. I mean, this was amazing. So he gets caught at the end of the first round. Comes at the beginning of the second, and you know he's probably thinking, he's probably like, man, I got to be on the lookout for that left hook. Pereira, in the same stance, catches him with a left high kick. Dislocated his toe in the process that he relocated, for lack of a better term, after he knocked out Yuri, and he lays him out. He shamas him to the land of wind and ghosts. And we hope to see Yuri Prochazka again. But we might not. We just might not. I mean, Alex Pereira is something different, bro. He's something different. He's not going out there with the striking, pick you off style of, you know, the pitter patter style of Izzy. He's not going out there and jabbing you to death and low kicking you to death and, you know, and trying to re-center and do his little Bruce Lee pose and all of this stuff. He ain't doing none of that, all right? He's not out here, you know, doing crump dances, doing all this stupid stuff that Izzy's doing and trying to pitter-patter somebody and go all the way to the scorecards and win. Nah, that's not his style. He's not walking forward, chin out, like a madman berserker like Yuri Prochazka. Nah. That's not his style. You know what I'm saying? He's not doing any of that. You know, he's not really concerned with your wrestling, with your ground game. He's not doing any of that. The man is walking out there every fight, stoic, no emotion, with a kickboxing skill and pedigree that is tremendous. But most of the time, what I see in his fights is he has incredible vision, meaning he can almost predict certain movements or see certain things happening from his opponent before it happens. Thus, he positions him being his opponent with that devastating left hook, with that devastating power. He administers it, and his opponent goes down, and that's how she wrote. And he's going out there and he's doing this time and time again. And at this point, while your boy, all of y'all that like him, Israel Adesanya sits at home laying flat on the couch, emotionless, when Alex wins again. He's now a two-division champion. He's had multiple title defenses, and he's still going. And right now it looks like he's going to take the dream fight that Israel Adesanya was trying to get, being John Jones. He's literally Alex Powhatan. I will say this real quick and we'll move on. Trust me, I'll try to keep this video short. There's not a ton to go over in the rest of the card. But Powhatan has gone out there. He took Izzy's belt at middleweight. Granted, Izzy came back and beat him. But he took that shine. He went up to light heavyweight. He took the light heavyweight championship, which was clearly what Izzy originally wanted to do early in his UFC career. He then, without having to be a nuisance, be a loser, be a nerd like Izzy and call him out in little lame ways, he has garnered the attention of John Jones, of Jonathan Jones. He has garnered the attention of him. And more than likely, if John goes through with this stupid fight against Stipe, in I believe they're targeting November, more than likely John will defeat Stipe Miocic and then end his career with a final fight against Alex Pereira. Because we all know John does not want that smoke with Tommy Aspinall. I'm saying that as a John Jones fan, but it's quite clear. You know what I'm saying? John Jones does not want that smoke with Tom Aspinall. And I could totally see him jumping over Tom and giving a world title shot for the heavyweight championship of the world to Alex Pereira. I could totally see that happening. Could totally see that happening. Because just by how John speaks, I think he definitely sees that as a more winnable fight than against Tom Aspinall. And Izzy is sitting somewhere on the couch, laying flat, looking stupid in a green sweatshirt. Fresh off of sharing a video of him crump dancing again. While Alex Pereira is still out here making history. And frankly, at this point, there's a lot of people that, 3 or 4 years ago, you never would have did this, but there's a lot of people now that aren't even picking Izzy to beat Dricus du Plessis, and I would be one of them. Sucks to be Izzy. Anyway, Alex Pereira goes out there. He gets a big win. He's still in the driver's seat. He's got all the chips now in his favor. He's done multiple favors for the UFC to get them out of jams. They're forever gonna worship Alex Pereira, so they're gonna give him whatever he wants. So we will see where he goes from here. But I mean, can you imagine if he goes out there and actually fights John Jones? Can you imagine that? I mean, that's just crazy, bro. It's just crazy. Poor Tom Aspinall. And more importantly, poor Izzy. I mean, regardless, if that's how it works out, that's just how it works out. But shout out to Powhatan. Shout out to Alex Pereira. He goes out there, he gets a win. Anyway, let's move on. In the main event, in a catch bout at 165 pounds, Diego Lopes goes out there and defeats Dan Ige. I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about, Dan Ige? What are you talking about, Matt? I'm talking about Dan Ige accepts this catchweight bout on 4 hours' notice as, lame A, stupid A, lost A, misguided A, was about to waste $100,000 of his purse and donate it to some random organization A. Brian Ortega goes out there and almost ruined the whole fight card again because he pulls out of the fight at the last minute. Look, man, all last week, this is what I'll say. You could tell, if you saw Brian Ortega speak at all last week, you saw this man was not in the right frame of mind to step into the fight. He was not in the right mindset. If you're like, Matt, why would you say Brian Ortega is not in the right mindset to step in the octagon? Then I would reply in a Brian Ortega voice, I'm glad you asked. Because this homie was out of it the whole week. You know what I'm saying? He never seemed to, he didn't even seem like he understood half the questions he was being asked at a press conference or at media day. He always seemed out of it. He's talking about going and doing a real life purge against his neighbors, which I found to be crazy. I'm also like, Brian Ortega, you fought for the world title twice. You ain't got enough money to go live somewhere with better neighbors than the ones you're highlighting that you need to go purge in a purge scenario. Tracy or Tracy Cortez didn't take that much of your money, homie. You just must not be good at managing money. Because I just don't see how you're that broke that you're living in an apartment somewhere with a landlord, with neighbors that are keeping you up while you're trying to train for a world class fight, and you fought for the world title twice. So all of that is just terrible. You know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, man, the homie was out of it the whole week. He did Diego Lopes wrong. He goes out there, he has Diego Lopes thinking they're going to fight at 145. Diego Lopes is on point. He's about to make weight. It's the middle of the night. Middle of the night on Thursday night, he gets contacted that his fight is now at 155 pounds. Because Brian Ortega can't make the weight. Then he finds out, he goes ahead, he makes weight at 155. He's already on par, on point to make it at 145. So he just starts, reloading with water, rehydrating, balloons up to 155. He makes that weight. You could tell he was not happy when he weighed in on the scale. Then you come to find out Brian Ortega goes out there and makes that weight, but then can't make it to go fight for whatever reason. They're claiming medical reasons. Who knows with Brian Ortega? You know what I'm saying? This dude is off. He can't make the fight, so the day of the fight, he pulls out. He can't make it. I guess they're claiming medical reasons, or maybe the doctors pulled him from the fight. I don't know. They had to hit up Dan Ige, who's lightweight training for a fight in July, but they're basically pulling him off the couch on 4 hours' notice. Shout out to him to step in the octagon with Diego Lopes at 165 pounds. Imagine everything that's gone through Diego Lopez's mind in 1 week's preparation. And then 3 or 4 hours preparation to fight Dan Ige, who doesn't fight, I'd like to add, like Brian Ortega at all. Not close. Not even in the same arena. Bro. Shout out to Diego Lopes. And he goes out there and he gets the win over Dan Ige by decision. Shout out to him. He still looked awesome. Shout out to Dan Ige, who loses the first 2 rounds and arguably probably did win the 3rd round against Diego Lopes. Shout out to him. More importantly, both of these men, shout out to them because they both got more, they both got bigger balls than Brian Ortega, Tracy Cortez aside. You know what I'm saying? These 2 men went out there and put it all on the line. And, if Brian Ortega is really having a lot of physical complications, could not make it to the octagon, I'm sorry. Shout out to him. No, don't want to disrespect a fighter who health-wise could not make it. But in my opinion, I never thought that fight was going to happen the entire week. Because every interview they did with Brian Ortega, every time they talked to him during the press conference, everything, the homie seemed like he wasn't going to make that walk. So anyway, shout out to the future GOAT in the making, being Diego Lopes, who's still going out there and doing Diego Lopes things. I look to see both of these guys more than likely, probably on the card in the Sphere in Las Vegas. So we'll see how it works out. Shout out to Dana White for giving it up to both of these guys. We all know he's going to definitely give them a huge backroom bonus that won't be disclosed. They were already, Dan Ige is getting that, but Diego Lopes probably is getting 3 backroom bonuses given the fight week and fight preparation he had for Brian Ortega. So shout out to them. Let's move on. We're going to power through all of these. Roman Dolidze, an extremely boring, terrible fight, defeats Anthony Smith. Once again, I truly don't dislike Anthony Smith. He's a good dude. He's a family man. Shout out to him. But bro, quit this charade that you're still going to go out there and try to make your way back to a title shot and continue this. Just let it go, bro. You're already on the desk as an analyst. You can just chill, bro. Nevertheless, Roman Dolidze goes out there and wins, not even in his weight class, and beats Anthony Smith. Next, we had Mayra Bueno Silva go out there against Macy Chiasson. You know, I picked Macy to get the win. She goes out there, she gets the win via cut stoppage. I believe she delivered a devastating blow with the elbow on the ground and cut Bueno Silva's right above the forehead, right above the eyebrow. Deep cut. Crazy cut. Looked like she got slashed with a switchblade. You know what I'm saying? Looked like this was, back in the 70s. They tied their wrists together and they got down into a knife fight because it looked bad. Nevertheless, Macy Chiasson goes out there and gets the win. Bueno Silva she looked good at the beginning of the first round, but once again, I don't know what's up with her cardio, but she always looks like when she really goes out there and starts putting a pace on these women, that she then has to take a round off or she starts to gas out. So I don't know what's up with that. Next, we had Ian Machado Gary defeat Michael Venom Page via decision. This was not really an exciting fight. First round, Ian Machado Gary goes out there and, he's been training with Charles Oliveira. He goes out there and eventually, the beginning of the first round looked like a typical MVP fight. He's keeping him away at range. He's literally putting his front leg out there for Ian Gary to try to leg kick. Shout out to Ian Gary, who stayed composed and didn't, because if he would have leg kicked him, then MVP was going to come in with that devastatingly quick 1-2. And that was what he was trying to do. He was still catching him with the 1-2, but that was what he was trying to do. But Ian Gary did not fall for the bait. He stayed strong. He eventually got the fight to the ground in the first round and just rode MVP out. Almost choked him out. I'm not sure how MVP was able to survive that, because at one point he had the neck, but he survived it. So shout out to MVP. Second round, MVP does MVP things. I feel like he won the second round. Third round, I think in the beginning, MVP was winning. Where MVP messed up is he had Ian on the ground. He was on top of him trying to do damage, and then for whatever reason, he let Ian Gary up. And I don't know what was up with that. I think he thought he was going to let him up and catch him on the feet and finish the fight. Horrible decision. He should have stayed on top of him on the ground and just tried his hand at that, because I don't think Ian Gary is skilled enough to try to pull off a submission from his back. So, MVP basically threw the fight away. He stood up. It wasn't long before Ian Gary was able to get him up against the cage, take his back, and just rode him out from the rest of that point, and that was that. So, that's what it is. Ian Gary goes out there, gets a boring decision win. We see where he goes from there. I don't know, man. I don't know. It wasn't really a good fight. I mean, we all kind of saw the potential of that happening, but that's what it was. Next, we had Joe Pyfer going out there and doing Joe Pyfer things as he literally face plants powerbar Marc-Andre Barriault. I mean, literally face plants him. I mean, I watched that knockout. I turned to my wife and said, "A man has died in the middle of the octagon." I looked at her and I said, Joe Pyfer is about to go to jail because he just killed a man. A man died in the middle of the octagon. As we saw power bars, literally the power bar was drained on the video game. It went from being full to being absolutely nothing. There was not even a danger. There was not a warning light like your gas light on your gas tank on your car. It was just literally, and that was it. And Power Bar lost his life, and he never regained it. So shout out to him and his family. I know they're trying to pick up the pieces now that, Marc-Andre lost his life on Saturday night. Nevertheless, shout out to Joe Pyfer, who started a USA chant, did his thing. He moves on. Next, we had Cub Swanson against Andre Fili. Man, I picked Andre Fili to win this fight, and he did. by decision, but there was definitely a world you could have gave that to Cub Swanson. You know, pretty back and forth fight. And I will say, I mean, from what I saw from Cub Swanson, unlike Anthony Smith, Cub Swanson went out there and put on a good showing for himself. But Andre Fili goes out there and gets the win. Not the most action-packed fight at all, but it was all right. Next, we had Jean Silva go out there and defeat Charles Jourdain, Air Jourdain, you know, via knockout. And it was devastating. And it was swift, it was quick. You saw once Silva had rocked Jourdain midway, close to the end of the first round, you pretty much knew he never regained his composure. He was always somewhat wobbly after he was already knocked down or dropped by Gene Silva. So you know that is what it is, man. Gene Silva, unfortunately, he missed weight because you know he would have got some sort of a performance bonus, but man, he goes out there, he knocks out Air Jourdain, and we see where he goes from here. Hopefully he dials that weight in. You know, really great character. He's a part of the Fighting Nerds. Outstanding. He's putting the nerd glasses on Joe Rogan. So, you know, they got a good gimmick. You know, they definitely got a lot going on, so shout out to him. He's definitely a noticeable guy, so, you know, the UFC, no telling where they'll send him. Let's move on. We had Peyton Talbot go out there and literally, I mean, he also killed a man. You know, he also killed a man, just like Joe Pyfer. As Talbot goes out there and knocks out Giannis, it don't even matter. Let's just call him Giannis G, because the man, he lost his life. Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see him again in the octagon. But Talbot goes out there, defeats his opponent quickly, with a quick jab, and then bing, a right hand, and that was it. And it was over. There was no need to go any further. You know what I'm talking about? It was over. There was no need to proceed. The man lost his life. So let's just move on from that. Talbot looked outstanding. Let's move on. We had Michelle Waterson Gomez have her last fight as she goes out there and gets retired by Jillian Robertson. Shout out to Michelle Waterson Gomez, man. You know, she's one of the pioneers of women's fighting, but man, you know, I've been saying for a while she just hasn't had it for like her last 4 to 5 fights. She just hasn't had it, man. She takes way too much damage, as it was showed in her octagon post-fight speech. You know, she lays down the gloves. It was really emotional. Joe Rogan kept breaking down. He kept, you know, fighting back tears. Very emotional. She was crying. Her husband's right there beside her. Shout out to her, though. She gave a great speech about hanging up the gloves and what all of these fighters go through about trying to continue, trying to get one more win, not knowing what their identity will be after they retire. So, you know, they all deal with that. So it was very emotional to see her basically come to terms with this is it. This is the end. And now she has to move forward as a mother, as a wife, and go ahead and give time to her family now. So shout out to her. Shout out to Jillian Robertson, who did out there like I thought she was going to and dominate Michelle Waterson on the ground. Had a little bit of fire for her on the feet as well. Shout out to Coach Dean Thomas. You know what I'm saying? He's doing his thing as well. He's on the earpiece. He's on the phone while she's walking out. He's talking to DC. He's talking to John Anik. He's talking to Joe Rogan. He's doing his thing. It was all a good showing, but kind of a boring fight, but nevertheless, man, shout out to both women as they did their thing. Let's move on. We had Andrei Arlovski go out there against Martin Buday and be defeated in an extremely boring fight. Boring fight. Dana White says it's over for Arlovski. You know, he's ready to give him his walking papers. So I really don't want to shout out Martin at all. I mean, I knew he was going to win this fight. He was my pick. I don't even want to shout him out because, in my opinion, he just coasted. And you don't got to be coasting against Andrei Arlovski. Let's move on. We had Ray Tsuruya. If I said his name right, I apologize. Against Carlos Hernandez. I picked Hernandez to go out there and win this fight. And frankly, he had a good showing for himself. He had a really good showing. He was hanging. He was hanging, bro. He was hanging with Ray in a lot of these exchanges on the ground. But Ray's that dude. He proved he is that dude on the ground and in the scrambles and with submissions and everything. Outstanding, bro. Great prospect. He proved me wrong. I didn't know he was really going to end up being a prospect, but he looks like he is. So shout out to him. He goes out there and gets the win. And then we had, if I'm saying his first name right, Vinicius Oliveira go out there and look like the little brother of Charles Oliveira and just outclass Ricky Simone. Outclassed him, bro. I don't know what was going on with Ricky Simone, but he was scared to throw. Like he didn't have that, like Anthony Smith. There were clear times that Ricky Simone could have thrown or could have shot, and he just wouldn't. He was very hesitant. So I don't know about him, bro. He might be on his way out because he looked like he was a lot of hesitation to throw. Shout out to Oliveira. He looked outstanding. He looked like, he looked like he could end up being that dude. Definitely an exciting fighter. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to him. He goes out there and gets the win, man. So that was UFC 303. Once again, Alex Poatan goes out there and does Poatan things. We'll see where he goes from here. We'll see who his next fight will be against. If it will be a light heavyweight, possibly against, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking the UFC might buy into moving him to heavyweight and letting him. It ain't gonna be for Tom Aspinall fight, but maybe for that John Jones battle. I don't know. But we'll see how all of that plays out. I mean, we will see how it goes, man. But nevertheless, it was UFC 303. It went down at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas over Saturday. We've got a week off here, and then we're right back with it, with Rose Namajunas, Thug Rose in the main event. She's had Macy Barber dropped out, so, quick replacement. But nevertheless, man, we'll see how it all goes down. So I do want to thank you all for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.